Hello guys, and welcome to Dreamy Minds. Somewhere deep in the dark, where your day finally loosens its grip, there is a softer story waiting to be told. It is the story of how everything you are once was a star. Tonight, we will walk slowly through that story. Not in a rushed scientific way, but as if we are strolling through a quiet museum after midnight. The lights dim, the air calm, every exhibit lit by a single gentle lamp. On the wall, there is a familiar shape, the periodic table. Rows and columns, small boxes with strange symbols. At first glance, it looks cold, abstract, like something from a classroom chalkboard. But if you lean closer, if you let your breathing slow, you might begin to see it differently. Each little square is a memory of the universe learning how to build. Hydrogen, the first whisper of matter. Carbon, the backbone of stories. Oxygen, the breath between thoughts. Sodium and potassium, the tiny sparks that carry your feelings along the fragile branches of your nerves. Iron, the silent courier in your blood, carrying oxygen the way a night train carries lanterns through the dark. It's normal to feel small in the face of all of this. It's normal to feel tired, overwhelmed, or uncertain. Somewhere deep in the mind, anxiety can curl like a fist, holding on to every undone task, every unfinished sentence. But tonight, you don't have to solve anything. You don't have to fix or achieve or improve. You only have to listen. As we drift through the elements, one by one, we'll move slowly, like a feather settling on still water. We'll notice how the same pieces that build galaxies also build the quiet architecture of your brain, your heartbeat, your sleep. How calcium opens tiny doors in your neurons. How magnesium softens tension. How even the heaviest elements, the ones born in violent stellar endings, teach us about release and the art of letting go. Like the stars waiting quietly on a winter night, the elements are simply there, patient and constant. Tonight, they will keep watch while you rest. The map of stardust, reading the table like a night sky. Imagine, for a moment, that you are standing in a very quiet room. It might be a museum after hours, the kind that smells faintly of paper and polished wood, where footsteps sound like gentle echoes and the air feels heavy with stories. The lights have been dimmed, only one wall is softly lit, and on that wall hangs something you may remember from school, or from a book, or perhaps from a distant, half-forgotten memory. A rectangle, filled with small squares. The periodic table. In the bright light of day, it can look rigid, almost severe. Rows and columns, symbols and numbers. A map of matter, dressed like a spreadsheet. But here, in the hush of evening, under this softer light, it begins to change. If you let your eyes relax, the squares stop being boxes and start becoming windows. Each one glows with its own faint presence, like an apartment window in a sleeping city, or a star in a crowded sky. Some windows shine a little more brightly, some seem quieter, but all of them together form a pattern you can feel, even if you don't quite understand it. You take a slow breath in and out. Somewhere inside you, something settles. The periodic table, this map of elements, is not just a chart of chemicals. It is in a way an alphabet of existence. Each square is a letter, each letter is a possibility. When the universe wants to write a mountain, or a river, or a single human heartbeat, it reaches for these same small letters and rearranges them into different words, different forms, different lives. Hydrogen, helium, carbon, oxygen, names you may have heard, like characters from a myth you only half remember. Every element is a kind of note in the music of matter. On their own, they are simple tones, clear, distinct, maybe even a little plain. But when they gather, when they join hands and form molecules, crystals, cells, organs, planets, they become songs, they become symphonies, they become you. If you like, you can let your breathing fall into a gentle rhythm now, as if you are listening to a slow piece of music. Inhale and exhale. Each breath a quiet reminder that you too are made from this cosmic alphabet. Move a little closer in your mind to one of those glowing squares. Perhaps you choose any one at all, it doesn't matter which. Inside that square is a symbol, usually 1 or 2 letters, and a small number. That number is called the atomic number, but we don't need the official name tonight. We can think of it simply as the element's true name, written in a language older than Earth itself. That number tells you how many tiny, positively charged beads, protons, sit in the center of that atom. 1 proton, and the universe calls it hydrogen. 2 protons, and it becomes helium. 6, and it is carbon. 8, and it is oxygen. Change the number, even by 1, and the element becomes something entirely different, the way changing a single letter in a word can turn heart into earth. There is something quietly comforting about this certainty. At the smallest scales of reality, identity is simple. It is just a count, a small, whole number, a tiny signature of how much positive charge is gathered at the center. The rest, the shapes of molecules, the color of leaves, the taste of salt, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, unfolds from that basic count, like an endless story told from a simple beginning. It's normal to feel small when you think about such things. To feel that your day's worries, your tangled thoughts, your unfinished to-do lists don't quite belong in the same universe as these ancient rules. And yet, they do. They are built from them. Every feeling you've had today, every thought that kept circling, every spark of joy, every shadow of doubt, all of it is written in the language of these elements. Somewhere deep in your mind, right now, an enormous network of neurons is quietly active. Each neuron is a tiny living cell, built from atoms, carbon and hydrogen in its membranes, oxygen in its energy factories, calcium ions waiting at its gates, sodium and potassium ready to create little waves of electricity. And in this very moment, as you listen, those neurons are sorting and filing the experiences of your day. They are deciding, without your conscious approval or effort, which moments will be kept as long-term memories, which will fade into the background, and which will simply dissolve. They do this using the same elemental building blocks that hang, symbol by symbol, in front of you on that periodic table. It's like 2 maps layered over one another, one of the outer world and one of the inner. Look again, gently, at the table on the wall. The elements are not thrown together at random. They are arranged in rows and columns, each position meaningful, each place a reflection of what that element can do, how easily it reacts, how it behaves when it meets others. This is why it's called a periodic table, because a pattern repeats over and over as you move across the rows. We can think of the rows, called periods, as stories told in stages. On the left side, the elements are often eager to give away their electrons, to share, to join. On the right side, especially at the far edge, the elements grow more satisfied, more complete, less inclined to change. The columns, called groups or families, gather elements with similar personalities, like neighborhoods in that quiet city. Imagine now that this table is not just a chart, but a small, glowing city. The metals cluster together in one district, shining gently, good at carrying electricity and heat, like the wires that hum behind your walls. These are the elements that build bridges and bells, blood and bones, the foundations of both machines and bodies. Across from them, the non-metals form another neighborhood, softer and more varied, gases that fill the sky, brittle solids that form the basis of living tissue, Elements like carbon that can become graphite in a pencil or diamonds in a ring depending on how their atoms are arranged. And then, on the far right, a row of noble gases, each sitting quietly in its own high apartment, lights low, curtains gently closed. These elements are so self-contained, so complete in their electron shells, that they rarely reach out to bond with others. They are like the introverts of the elemental world, calm, self-sufficient, watching the rest of the universe with a kind of serene distance. In this city of matter, every neighborhood has its role. Metals conduct and connect. Non-metals weave and build. Noble gases protect and insulate, filling spaces with their quiet presence. And in your body, all of them, directly or indirectly, contribute to the great ongoing conversation that is your life. The structure of this city, this table, has its own kind of poetry. As you move from one row to the next, it is as if another layer of possibility is added. More electrons, more complex orbits, more ways for the element to join with others. In the same way, as you move upward through the layers of your brain, you pass through different levels of function. At the base, nestled near the top of your spine, is the brainstem, an ancient, quiet caretaker that keeps your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your body temperature stable. Above it, the limbic system, a ring of structures that help shape emotion, memory, a sense of safety or threat. And above that, the cortex, folded like a pale sea, where thought and imagination and self-awareness live. You don't have to remember the names. You don't have to picture their exact shapes. It's enough to feel that your brain, like the periodic table, is layered. Older regions supporting newer ones. Simple controls nested beneath complex reflections. A deep architecture of being, made from the same elements that once burned in stars. Somewhere, right now, deep in the folds of your cortex, patterns of electrical activity are slowly loosening. During the day, they were bright and intricate, like lightning storms, rapid firings, sharp angles of thought, sudden spikes of emotion. Now, as night comes closer, as your body begins to understand that it is allowed to rest, those storms settle. The brain starts to shift toward the slower, rolling waves that come just before sleep. In this in-between space, your mind may try to hold on to the day, to the conversations you had, the things you wish you'd said, the tasks that remain undone. It's normal to feel that tug, that slight resistance to letting go. But remember the table on the wall. Nothing in it is hurried. Hydrogen has been hydrogen for billions of years. Carbon does not wake in the night wondering if it should have acted like nitrogen instead. Each element has its place, its proton count, its quiet, persistent way of being. For tonight, you are allowed to be a little more like that. You don't have to sort everything perfectly before you sleep. You don't have to understand every detail of this cosmic chart. Your brain, built from these same elements, knows how to organize in the dark. During certain stages of sleep, neurons in deep structures like the hippocampus replay fragments of your day. Tiny bursts of electrical activity that help strengthen some memories and gently erase others. It is as if your mind is tidying its own table, deciding which experiences belong in the front row and which can drift to the edges. The families of elements on the periodic table have their own quiet routines. Metals, with their sea of shared electrons, are like a community that passes information easily from neighbor to neighbor. This is why they make such good conductors, why copper wires carry electricity, why iron can be magnetized. In your body, metallic elements like sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium do something similar, but more delicate. They move across cell membranes, carrying little charges that become thought, sensation and motion. Non-metals, in contrast, often form strong directional bonds. They shape the rigid backbone of molecules, the double helix of DNA, the flexible proteins that act as enzymes and messengers. They are the weavers, creating long, intricate patterns out of simple threads. And noble gases? They mostly stay out of the fray, hovering at the edges, filling in spaces, preventing other, more reactive elements from sparking into unwanted combinations. In neon signs, they glow softly when thrilled by electricity. In the atmosphere, they float, almost aloof, like guardians of emptiness. You might think of them as the parts of you that know how to be still, the part that doesn't always need to react, to answer, to engage, the part that can witness thoughts and sensations without being pulled into every drama. It may not always feel strong, that part. It may feel small, overshadowed by louder inner voices. But it exists, as surely as argon exists, as surely as the final column of the periodic table stands. Calm and self-contained. As you stand, imagining yourself in that quiet museum, gazing at the map of elements, you may notice a kind of symmetry between the chart and yourself. On the table, simple elements rest at the top left, complex ones at the bottom right. In you, simple reflexes dwell in the older, deeper parts of the brain, while nuanced thoughts and layered emotions arise in the newer outer layers. Both systems are intricate, but both are built from repeating understandable patterns. Even if you never learn all the details, you can trust that the pattern holds. It's normal to feel lost in the vastness of it all, to think, this is too much, too complicated, too distant from my small life. But complexity doesn't have to be frightening. Sometimes it can be like watching waves on the ocean from far away. You don't have to count every ripple to feel soothed by the movement. The periodic table is like that ocean of possibility. You can let the names flow past you like waves. Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon. A gentle litany of existence. Each one a note, together, a hymn. You don't need to hold them tightly. Let them wash over you and recede. You might notice that even saying or thinking these names in a slow, steady rhythm can be calming, like a lullaby spoken in the language of stars. Hydrogen, helium, carbon. Somewhere beyond any museum, beyond any classroom, these elements are not confined to a chart. They are out there, scattered in space, locked in rocks, flowing through oceans, glowing in distant suns. And they are in here too, quietly assembled into the tissues of your brain, the rhythm of your heart, the warmth of your skin. When you feel, I am overwhelmed, that feeling is written in tiny movements of ions, in the opening and closing of channels in your neurons. When you feel, I am calm, that too is written in chemistry. Both states are temporary arrangements of the same fundamental pieces. The table on the wall doesn't judge one arrangement as better than another. It simply shows what is possible. Tonight, you are invited to stand gently between those possibilities, with no pressure to choose or change anything. To know that your mind can be stormy or clear, and underneath, the elements remain steady. In time, as you drift further into the night, we will visit some of these elements more closely. Hydrogen and helium like the first whispers of existence, carbon and oxygen as the architects of life, sodium and potassium as the sparks of your thoughts. But for now, it is enough to linger here, at the edge of the map. Let the periodic table blur again into a night sky. Each square becomes a star. Each star becomes a story. Somewhere deep in your mind, a quieter pattern is emerging. A slow wave of relaxation, a soft gravity pulling you toward rest. You are made of stardust arranged into a nervous system that can worry, yes, but also into a consciousness that can pause, look up at the map of its own ingredients, and feel a little wonder. Allow that wonder to be gentle, not sharp, a warm, low light, not a glaring beam. You don't have to memorize the stars to be guided by them. You don't have to understand the table to be held by it. Just breathe, in and out, knowing that the same careful order that sets hydrogen beside helium and oxygen near fluorine is at work within you, organizing thoughts into dreams, experiences into memories, tension into release. The map of stardust hangs quietly on the wall of the universe. And somewhere beneath it, in a small corner of space and time, you are closing your eyes. If you'd like, you can imagine that the room around you grows a little darker now. The map of the periodic table, with all its tiny glowing windows, begins to blur around the edges, as if someone has slowly turned a dimmer switch on the universe. The many squares become fewer. The rows and columns begin to soften like chalk lines in the rain, until, at last, almost everything fades away, and only two small lights remain. Hydrogen. Helium, the first syllables the cosmos ever spoke. Take a slow breath in and a slow breath out. Let your shoulders fall just a little. Let your jaw soften. Somewhere deep in your chest, your heart continues its quiet rhythm, utterly familiar, yet still, at its core, made from the same ingredients as distant suns. To meet hydrogen and helium, we have to travel backward, far beyond your day, far beyond the history in your textbooks, far beyond the age of the Earth itself. We drift past the formation of planets, past the swirling of galaxies, past the birth of stars, to a time when the universe was still catching its breath after a single, astonishing beginning. The Big Bang. You might imagine it like a flash of unbearable brightness, but also like an exhale, an enormous, all-at-once release of energy and possibility from a point smaller than thought. Not an explosion in space, but an expansion of space itself. No edges, no outside, just everything, everywhere, stretching open. In the first fractions of a second, it was too hot, too dense for anything familiar to exist. No atoms, no light traveling freely, just a storm of fundamental particles colliding, merging, tearing apart again. It was chaos, but a purposeful chaos, like the churning of soil before a garden. As time passed, tiny slices of time, then larger ones, the universe began to cool. Energy thickened into matter. Particles joined into protons and neutrons, the tiny seeds that could one day become the heart of atoms. You can imagine the temperature of reality itself falling, like a fever finally breaking. In those first few minutes, something delicate and precise happened. In that hot, fizzing soup, protons and neutrons began to link together. 2 here, then 3, then 4. In this narrow window of density and temperature, the universe acted like a cosmic chemistry set, but with very limited ingredients. What emerged from that newborn firestorm was, mostly, hydrogen, single protons, often with a light electron settling into orbit around them, like a small moon around a tiny sun. Alongside it, a generous helping of helium, 2 protons together, with enough neutrons and electrons to make them stable, to make them whole. Hydrogen and helium, about 3/4 hydrogen, 1/4 helium, and only the faintest trace of anything heavier. That was the early universe's recipe. Simple, sparse, like a very short vocabulary that would one day write an impossibly long book. It's strangely soothing to know that at its beginning, The universe was not complicated. It was full, yes, full of energy and heat and motion, but its contents were few. 1 proton, or 2, hydrogen, or helium. 1 or 2. You might let your breath follow that same simple rhythm. In and out. 1 and 2. Hydrogen is, in many ways, the simplest thing that can meaningfully exist as matter. 1 proton in the center, 1 electron dancing around it. That's enough for the universe to give it a name, enough for it to have a personality. Because of that simplicity, hydrogen is incredibly light, incredibly agile. But it's also, strangely, a dreamer. It longs to connect. Single and incomplete, it tends to reach out, toward other hydrogens, toward oxygen, toward carbon. It wants to share electrons, to be part of something larger. In the early universe, hydrogen drifted in vast, invisible clouds. Imagine oceans without shores, spread across a cosmos with no galaxies yet, no stars, just darkness and these gentle, wandering atoms. Slowly, under the pull of gravity, another quiet rule written into the bones of reality, those clouds began to gather. Hydrogen felt the slightest tug toward hydrogen. A region a little denser than its surroundings pulled in a little more, and that pulled in more still. Over millions of years, those invisible clouds thickened like mist turning into rain. Inside these growing clumps, the pressure rose. The temperature climbed. Hydrogen atoms crowded closer and closer, like people huddling for warmth on a cold night. Until, at last, deep in the hearts of these clouds, the conditions became extreme enough that something miraculous could happen. Hydrogen began to fuse. Under immense pressure, 4 hydrogen nuclei, 4 protons, could be pressed together in a delicate and improbable sequence of steps into a single helium nucleus, 2 protons, bound tightly with 2 neutrons. In that conversion, a tiny bit of mass disappeared, transformed into pure energy, flung outward as light and heat. And just like that, the universe lit its first stars. You can picture them if you like, small at first, then larger. Blue-white or golden, depending on their size. Igniting one after another in the cosmic dark, like candles in a vast, cold cathedral. Each star a place where hydrogen was quietly, steadily turning into helium, where light was being born from the simplest of unions. Hydrogen, the dreamer, becoming helium, the calm one. Because helium is different. Where hydrogen has 1 proton, helium has 2, and that small change gives it a kind of completeness. Its electrons fill their first shell perfectly. It doesn't reach outward as hungrily. It doesn't easily grab or cling or react. It is content, in a way hydrogen is not to simply be. Helium is a noble gas, and you can feel that nobility if you imagine it, gentle, aloof, softly glowing in a neon sign, or lifting a child's balloon into the sky. It doesn't burn. It doesn't tarnish. It doesn't rust. It exists almost as a pure presence, a kind of stillness in the sea of more reactive things. You might let helium stand, tonight, as a metaphor for calm. For the part of you that doesn't always need to react. For the quiet center in your own mind that can watch thoughts rise and fall without being pulled into each one as a crisis. As you breathe, you're not inhaling much helium. There's only a trace of it in the air. But you can borrow its personality. With each exhale, you might imagine yourself becoming a little more helium-like, spacious, unforced, light. Inhale, feeling the weight of the day. Exhale, letting that weight loosen, your thoughts rising just a little, like a balloon let go of a child's hand, not in panic, but in slow, drifting freedom. Somewhere deep in your body, hydrogen is playing another role now. Not as fuel for suns, but as part of water, the gentle H in Ho, that flows through every cell you own. Almost every place in your body that life is happening, water is there, carrying hydrogen along with oxygen in a perfect, quiet partnership. Your blood, mostly water. The fluid inside your cells, water. The thin film lining your lungs, water. Even the cushioning around your brain, the cerebrospinal fluid, is a sea in miniature, cradling your thoughts. Hydrogen's presence in water gives it strange and wonderful properties. The weak bonds it forms between neighboring water molecules make them cling just enough to create surface tension, to carry nutrients up the trunks of trees, to give your blood the right flow. Those same bonds help water absorb heat gently, protecting you from sudden temperature swings. Every time you drink a glass of water, you are taking in ancient hydrogen, atoms born in that early universe, once floating in clouds between galaxies, now quietly joining the internal rivers of your body. Picture, for a moment, those rivers, tiny streams within cells, wider channels in blood vessels, all part of an intricate landscape you carry around inside your skin. In those waters, hydrogen-bearing molecules drift. Glucose, the sugar that fuels your cells. Amino acids, the building blocks of your proteins. Lipids, the fats that form your membranes and store your energy. These molecules, built on frameworks of carbon and oxygen and nitrogen, carry hydrogen like lanterns along their edges. And when your cells need to release energy, to move a muscle fiber, to fire a neuron, to repair a tiny tear in a membrane, they do it by carefully shifting those hydrogens around. In the powerhouses of your cells, the mitochondria, hydrogen ions, protons, are pumped across delicate membranes, building up like water behind a dam. Then they flow back through microscopic turbines, turning the chemical potential into usable energy, into app, the coin your biology spends on everything it does. It's as if, on a small, quiet scale, your cells are mimicking stars, using hydrogen's potential, its willingness to move and join, to release light and warmth, not as visible flames, but as the subtle heat of a living body, the soft glow of a working brain. Somewhere in your skull, in the dark, pulsating substance of your brain, this is happening constantly. Neurons, hungry cells that they are, burn through energy faster than almost any other cell type. To keep you thinking, feeling, remembering, they rely on an endless river of hydrogen-laden molecules, arriving with the blood slipping through membranes, feeding those tiny molecular turbines. As you listen to these words, networks of neurons are communicating with each other, sending patterns of electrical activity along their long, branching fibers. These electrical waves are created, in part by the movement of ions, charged particles like sodium and potassium. But behind those motions lies hydrogen, hidden in the molecules that keep the whole system powered, balanced, alive. Your thoughts, in a quiet way, are written in hydrogen's ink. Neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, GABA, they are all organic molecules, little sculptures made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. When one neuron wants to whisper to another, it releases these molecules into the synapse, that tiny gap between cells. They diffuse across, bind to receptors, open channels, allow ions to flow, and in every one of those molecules, hydrogen plays its small essential role. Part of the shape that allows them to fit their receptors, part of the energy landscape that lets them form and break down at just the right times. The great roaring fire of the Big Bang feels impossibly far away from the gentle flicker of a thought like, "I'm tired," or "I should sleep." Yet there is a thread that runs between them, a chain of transformations, billions of years long, tracing hydrogen from its birth as a proton in the early universe, through stars, through clouds, into water, into food, into your blood, into your brain, into the chemistry of your mind. The universe's first exhale, becoming, eventually, your next inhale, and your next exhale. You might notice, here, how your own day has its small version of that cosmic story. Every morning when you wake, something like a tiny Big Bang happens inside your skull. Not a violent explosion, but a rapid transition from dark, slow-wave sleep to a state of organized activity. Neuronal networks that were idling quietly begin to ignite in more precise patterns. Regions of your cortex resynchronize, like musicians tuning up after a break. Consciousness turns on, colors return to the world. Your sense of self reassembles, like a constellation coming back into focus after clouds pass. The you who can worry, plan, remember, regret, hope. That configuration of activity emerges again from the resting background. At night, the reverse transition happens. The bright, busy chatter of your waking brain softens. Networks that handle attention and planning begin to disengage. Slower rhythms take over, like ocean swells replacing choppy waves. The stars of your internal sky dim, not disappearing, but conserving fuel, preparing for another dawn. It's normal during that transition to feel that your worries are huge. Thoughts you kept at bay during the day can crowd in at night when the world is quieter. Regrets, anxieties, old conversations replaying. They can feel like entire galaxies of concern, heavy and inescapable. But here, beside hydrogen and helium, you are allowed to let them be small for a while. Set against the slow unfolding of hydrogen into stars, the timescale of your fears shifts. 13.8 billion years of cosmic history, and here you are, in a single night, on a single planet, made of those same ancient atoms, feeling the weight of a single day. Your feelings are real, they matter, but they are not the whole universe. They are ripples in one small pocket of hydrogen's long journey. You can imagine them, if you want, as shadows thrown by a low sun. Large on the wall at first, stretched and distorted, but shrinking as the light changes. The light in this case is not the brightness of the day, but the soft, even illumination of perspective. The awareness that you are part of something vast, and that this moment, like all moments, will pass. Hydrogen teaches us that simplicity can endure. For billions of years, it has been doing a small number of things. Drifting, joining, fusing, flowing. It doesn't need to be complex to be important. It doesn't need to know the entire story to play its part. There is comfort in that. You too do not need to solve every problem tonight. You do not need to carry every thought to its conclusion. You can, instead, choose simplicity. One breath in, one breath out, one sensation at a time. The feeling of fabric on your skin, the quiet in the room, the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Helium, meanwhile, reminds us that not everything must react. Not every stimulus requires a response. Not every thought requires a decision. In the periodic table, helium and its noble cousins sit on the far right, mostly content to exist as they are, their electron shells full, uninterested in new bonds. In your emotional life, there can be a place like that too, a part of you that can say, "I see this thought, this worry, this memory, and I do not need to merge with it right now. I can let it drift past, like a cloud across a darkening sky." This doesn't mean indifference. It means having a safe inner room, lined with helium's calm, where you can rest between reactions. As you lie here, maybe with your eyes closed now, you can imagine yourself floating in one of those early hydrogen clouds, before the first stars were born. There is darkness, but it is not frightening, just endless and soft. All around you, hydrogen atoms drift, far apart, occasionally passing one another, bumping gently, but mostly just existing. You are weightless in this scene. You do not have a past or a future here, only presence. Each hydrogen atom is simple, complete in its incompleteness, waiting for the long, slow pull of gravity to draw it into something new. There is no rush. The universe is very young, and also endlessly patient. Far away, in another region of this early cosmos, a slightly denser cloud is already beginning its long collapse into a star. But you are not there. You are here, where nothing is demanded of you except to float. In and out. 1 and 2. Hydrogen and helium. The first light that would ever shine in the universe was born from their interaction. From the quiet insistence of gravity on hydrogen. From hydrogen's transformation into helium. Every sunrise, every candle, every campfire, every lamp owes something to that original process. Hydrogen becoming helium, matter becoming light, and the light that falls on your face in the morning, the light that tells your brain it is time to wake, time to begin again. That light started as a fusion reaction in the heart of a star built from those first patient atoms. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you are moving the other way, back toward the simplicity of darkness, back toward the quiet of unreacted potential. You are allowed to rest in that simplicity. One proton, one electron, one quiet presence in the dark. Hydrogen, waiting. Helium, watching. The universe, still here, still vast, still unfolding, whether or not you are awake to see it. And within that universe, a small, luminous being made of stardust is finally, gently, letting go of the day. Imagine that the darkness of the early universe, that vast ocean of hydrogen and helium, has been gently turning for a very long time. Stars have been born and burned and bloomed into supernovas. They have taken the simplest elements into their cores and, under the pressure of their own gravity, have forged new ones. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen. The heavier children of stellar fire. When those stars reached the ends of their lives, they did something both violent and generous. They let go. They exploded, scattering the elements they had made out into space, dust and gas rich with possibility, drifting and gathering, until new stars and new worlds formed from the remains. One of those worlds, over immeasurable time, became the place where you now lie, Earth. And on this small blue planet, those scattered elements arranged themselves into something we call life. If you'd like, you can let the scene around you change now. The dark of interstellar space softens into another kind of darkness, the shade beneath tall trees. You are walking slowly, very slowly, through a forest at dusk. The light is low and green. The air smells of leaves and damp soil and something you can't quite name. Everywhere you look there is life, trunks stretching upward, branches layered like thoughts, leaves linked together in quiet murmuring canopies. Beneath them, ferns and mosses and tiny flowers form their own small worlds. Insects move along stems. A bird settles on a branch. Somewhere far off, water is flowing over stones. This forest, from the tallest oak to the smallest blade of grass, is secretly built from a small group of familiar elements. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, a few close friends. The same is true for you, your body, your brain, your feelings, assembled from these same pieces, the way a whole library can be written with just 26 letters. Take a slow breath in and notice, if only in imagination, the softness of the air as it enters. In this forest, the air is not empty. It is a mixture of gases, mostly nitrogen, a generous amount of oxygen, a thin thread of carbon dioxide, and small traces of other players. You inhale, and with you comes oxygen, ready to be folded into your own story. You exhale, and with your breath goes carbon dioxide, a small gift back to the trees around you. You and the forest, exchanging elements like kindnesses passed quietly between strangers. Let your breath fall into an easy rhythm, in and out, like steps along a soft path. As you walk, imagine that the trunks of the trees grow translucent, just for a moment. Beneath the bark, you can see a strange architecture, not of bricks or beams, but of invisible scaffolding. This is the work of carbon. Carbon is the great backbone builder of life. Each carbon atom can hold hands with up to 4 other atoms at once. It is like a person with 4 open palms, able to connect in many directions without losing itself. Because of this, carbon can form chains, long, flexible strings of atoms, and rings, loops that close in on themselves like bracelets. Out of these chains and rings, life builds almost everything. Sugars and starches, fats and oils, proteins with their delicate folds, the bases of DNA, the messengers that move through your brain. One kind of carbon structure becomes the cellulose that stiffens a tree's cell walls, allowing it to stand tall. Another becomes the flexible lipids in your cell membranes, letting your cells bend and shape themselves. Another becomes the spinal cord of neurotransmitters that carry a feeling from one neuron to another. The same element, rearranged into very different roles. You can think of carbon as infinitely patient. It doesn't insist on one form. Under great pressures, it can become diamond, harder than almost anything else, clear and sparkling. In another arrangement, it becomes graphite, the soft dark substance in a pencil, leaving a trail of thought on paper. In your body, carbon is rarely so showy. It takes quieter forms, part of glucose in your blood, part of amino acids in your muscles, part of cholesterol in your membranes, part of serotonin in your synapses. Without fanfare, it holds the shape of your life. Somewhere deep in your brain, countless carbon atoms are linking together right now, making and remaking the molecules that store memories, that mark certain connections as important, that fade others into the background. When you learn something new or practice a skill or repeat a thought often enough, tiny changes happen at the surfaces where neurons meet, changes in the proteins embedded there, in the receptors that catch neurotransmitters, in the structure of the synapse. Those proteins and receptors are, at their heart, carbon-based. Chains of carbons wearing decorations of oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and other elements. Every habit, every association, every softened or sharpened memory is written in these carbon-bearing shapes. This process of constantly altering and rearranging connections is what scientists call neuroplasticity. Tonight, we can think of it as gardening. Your brain is not a fixed machine. It is a living forest. The neurons are like trees and vines, branching and reaching, forming networks of pathways. The glial cells, once thought of as mere support, are now understood as gardeners, trimming, feeding, insulating, cleaning. They remove excess connections, like pruning away dead twigs. They encourage others to grow stronger, like staking a sapling so it can stand against the wind. During the day, your inner forest can become tangled. Thoughts loop back on themselves. Stress hormones pour in like sudden rainstorms. Certain pathways get used so often they become like ruts in the soil. Others lie quiet, unused trails beneath undergrowth. It's normal to feel sometimes that your inner garden is overgrown or neglected, that certain worries have grown into thorned vines, crowding the more delicate flowers of peace and curiosity. But like carbon's quiet versatility, your mind holds countless ways to rebuild, reroute, renew. Every night, especially during deep sleep, this forest tends itself. Neurons that fired together during the day will replay their patterns in softer, slower bursts, reinforcing important connections and letting others fall away. Glial cells sweep through, clearing metabolic debris, widening some pathways, closing others. It's as if an unseen caretaker walks the forest floor with lantern and shears, saying, "This will keep, this will let go." You do not have to direct this work. You only have to allow it by resting. And rest begins, often, with breath. So let's return to the air in this forest, and to another of our quiet architects, oxygen. Oxygen is often drawn as two small spheres connected, a pair of atoms sharing electrons in a strong, simple embrace. In the atmosphere, oxygen moves as O, a twin, drifting among nitrogen and other gases. In your lungs, it arrives with every inhale, entering a delicate labyrinth of branching bronchi, narrowing and narrowing until it reaches tiny air sacs called alveoli. Picture those alveoli as clusters of grapes at the ends of vines, each one surrounded by the thinnest of capillaries, tiny blood vessels just wide enough for red blood cells to slip through, one by one. The wall between air and blood here is impossibly thin, only a few molecules deep. On one side, the forest air, rich in O. On the other, your blood, carrying carbon dioxide from your cells, ready to be exhaled. Oxygen moves across that thin barrier, as if it has been waiting its entire life for this moment. It dissolves in the fluid, slips into red blood cells, and there it encounters another element at work, iron, tucked inside hemoglobin molecules like small, patient hands. Each iron atom can hold an oxygen molecule, carrying it through your bloodstream like a lantern in the dark. Somewhere in your chest, these lanterns are moving now. With each slow beat of your heart, they travel to your tissues, delivering oxygen to cells that will use it to unlock energy from nutrients. This process, aerobic respiration, is a kind of controlled burning, fire without flames. In your mitochondria, those little powerhouses, oxygen accepts electrons at the end of a long chain of reactions, allowing protons, often hydrogen ions, to flow and turn tiny molecular turbines. The result is at P, the energy currency your cells need to do almost everything. To contract a muscle fiber, to fire a neuron, to build a protein, to pump ions back and forth across membranes. Oxygen is the quiet fire that feeds your inner light. Without enough of it, you feel it, heaviness, fatigue, a kind of dullness in thought. With a steady, gentle supply, your body can hum along, and your brain, so hungry for energy, can maintain the delicate patterns that produce clarity, memory, emotion. You don't have to understand each step of this dance to benefit from it. It's enough to know that when you take a slow, deliberate breath, you are stoking this inner fire in the gentlest way. Inhale, letting oxygen in. Exhale, letting carbon dioxide go. A two-way river of elements. The carbon in carbon dioxide once sat in a molecule of glucose, perhaps taken from a slice of bread, a piece of fruit, a grain of rice. Your cells broke that glucose apart, harvesting its energy, and passed the carbon along, finally exhaling it into the air. The forest around you inhales that carbon dioxide, using the carbon to build new sugars in its leaves through photosynthesis, releasing oxygen back into the air as a byproduct. You breathe its oxygen. It breathes your carbon. Life, at its root, is an ongoing exchange of elements, like the tide moving in and out on a shore that belongs to everyone. And then there is nitrogen, the quiet one, harder to feel, because it so often goes unnoticed. Most of the air you breathe, about 4 out of every 5 molecules, is nitrogen gas, N. 2 nitrogen atoms bound together by a strong triple bond, like 2 friends clasping arms so tightly that almost nothing can pull them apart. In this form, nitrogen is strangely inert. It passes through your lungs and back out without reacting, like a shy guest slipping through a crowded room. Yet nitrogen is essential. It forms part of the amino acids that build your proteins, part of the nucleotides that make up your DNA and RNA. It is there in the bases of your genetic code: adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. These are the letters with which your cells write their instructions: how to grow, when to divide, what proteins to make. If carbon provides the backbone of the text, nitrogen becomes part of the alphabet itself. But to get nitrogen into these forms, it has to be transformed. In the soil beneath your feet in the forest, certain bacteria have learned to gently pry open that triple bond of N, fixing nitrogen into more reactive forms like ammonia and nitrate. Lightning can do it too, briefly heating the air to the point where nitrogen molecules break apart and recombine in new ways. Plants take up these nitrogen compounds through their roots, building them into amino acids and nucleotides. Animals eat the plants, or other animals, and the nitrogen moves up the food chain. Eventually, food reaches you. Grains, beans, vegetables, meat, eggs, and those same nitrogen atoms are woven into your own tissues, your muscles, your enzymes, your hair, your thoughts. Inside your cells, strands of DNA coil and curl, suspended in the nucleus like a library of instructions. Each twist of the double helix is lined with nitrogen-bearing bases paired together, spelling out your unique code. Every time a cell divides, those bases are copied. Occasionally a letter changes, a mutation, adding new variations to the story. Somewhere in your brain, these nitrogen-laced instructions are quietly shaping the structure and function of neurons and glial cells, influencing how easily certain synapses strengthen or weaken, how reactive you are to stress, how your body metabolizes different neurotransmitters. And the neurotransmitters themselves, those tiny messengers of mood and thought, are again simply arrangements of our familiar friends. Serotonin, often associated with contentment and calm, is built from an amino acid called tryptophan, which itself is a configuration of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Dopamine, linked to motivation and reward, is another small sculpture of these same elements, arranged in rings and chains. GABA, which helps calm excessive neuronal firing, is yet another variation on this theme. Each of these molecules is delicate. Change a bond here or there, swap a nitrogen for an oxygen, and its shape, and therefore its role, changes. But at their core, they are all made from the bones of air and water. It's normal when your mood shifts, when anxiety rises or sadness falls upon you, to think it is all your fault, all willpower or weakness. But if you look with gentler eyes, you can see another layer, shifts in these tiny messengers, influenced by genes and sleep, by light and food, by stress and comfort. Your feelings are not just chemistry, in the sense of being unreal. They are chemistry in the same way a forest is just trees. Each tree is a living thing, and taken together, they make something larger and more mysterious. You're in a forest, this brain of branching neurons, This garden of glial cells responds constantly to the weather of your life. Storms of stress, seasons of rest, periods of drought when joy feels scarce, springs of new growth when healing begins. And through it all, carbon holds the shapes, oxygen feeds the fire, nitrogen writes and rewrites the code. As you walk in this imagined forest, you might notice that the trail begins to open into a small clearing. The air feels stiller here, the breeze softer. You can sit, if you like, on a smooth stone or a fallen log. Let your body in the real world find a comfortable position as you imagine this. Feel the contact of whatever supports you, the tug of gravity, the quiet presence of your own weight. Above you, leaves are gently moving, turning faintly silver on their undersides as they sway. Each leaf is a factory of transformations, taking in carbon dioxide through tiny pores, using light to rearrange carbon and oxygen and hydrogen into sugars, releasing oxygen back into the air. In your chest, your lungs mirror this process in reverse, drawing in oxygen, releasing carbon dioxide. It is a partnership so old and so deep that you rarely notice it, and yet this quiet reciprocity is the basis of almost everything, of your thoughts right now, of the tree's growth, of the soil's richness. Your breath is not a closed loop. It is part of an endless cycle. The carbon dioxide you exhale tonight may, in days or weeks or months, find its way into the trunk of a tree, into a blade of grass, into the petal of a flower. The oxygen you inhale may have been released hours ago by a patch of algae on the surface of the sea, or by a tree on the other side of the world. You are in constant conversation with the world, even when you are completely alone in a quiet room. This can be a comforting thought, especially on nights when you feel isolated. You are never truly separate. Every inhale is connection. Every exhale, contribution. As you sit in this clearing, you may feel that your own body is not so different from the trees around you. Beneath your skin is a framework of carbon-rich molecules, proteins forming your muscles, collagen giving strength to your tendons and skin, phospholipids shaping your cell membrane. Water fills the spaces between, held in place by hydrogen bonds and charged surfaces. Oxygen flows through, carried on iron, feeding your cells. Nitrogen sits in your DNA and your neurotransmitters, in your enzymes and your hormones, helping to direct the symphony of processes that keep you alive. You are, in a very ordinary and yet miraculous way, made of air and water. The bones of your being are formed from the things you breathe and drink and eat, and from the stardust that once burned in long-gone suns. If your mind feels tired, if your heart feels heavy, it may help to remember this. Your weariness has texture and chemistry. It is held in lactic acid in your muscles, in cortisol in your blood, in overworked synapses in your brain. It is not a moral flaw. It is a state of an organism made of carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, trying to cope with more than it was meant to handle alone. And just as states can shift, from gas to liquid to solid, from day to night, your inner state can shift too. Not instantly, not always easily, but over time, with rest, with kindness, with new experiences, your forest rearranges itself. Carbon will break old bonds and form new ones. Oxygen will continue to come and go with each breath, carrying away the byproducts of one day and bringing fuel for the next. Nitrogen will sit quietly in your genes, in your proteins, in your messengers, doing the slow, steady work of keeping the instructions intact while allowing for change. For now, you don't have to do that work. Your job is simpler. Just breathe. In, letting oxygen and nitrogen and all their companions enter. Out, letting carbon dioxide carry away a little of the day's residue. Like the tide moving gently on a shore, your breath rises and falls. each wave a reminder that you are part of something rhythmic, something larger than any single thought. If sleep comes while you are still thinking of carbon and oxygen and nitrogen, that's okay. They will continue their dance without you watching. Your brain's garden will keep tending itself in the dark, pruning and growing, solidifying some memories and letting others fade like footprints in soft soil. You are, after all, a temporary arrangement of these elements, a beautiful, improbable architecture of life, built from the bones of air and water. The forest of carbon and oxygen and nitrogen grows dim behind you now. The trees, with their patient exchange of breath, begin to blur, and the moss underfoot softens into something else. The green light fades, replaced by a different kind of darkness, warmer, closer, pulsing very softly, like the inside of a cupped hand. We are turning inward, leaving the broad architecture of life, the trunks and leaves, the Dina spirals, the rivers of water, and stepping into the hidden, shimmering circuitry that lets that life feel itself from the inside. Your nervous system, your heart, the quiet electricity that makes you, you. If you could look inside your own body now, not with a surgeon's eyes, but with the gaze of a poet and a physicist, you would not see empty caverns and dry machinery. You would see oceans. Thin oceans, pressed into tiny spaces, the fluid inside your cells, the fluid between them, all of it filled with floating particles called ions. Small, charged versions of familiar elements. Sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium. Together, they form a kind of inner sea of salt and spark. You already know sodium from your table salt, its crystals crumbling between your fingers, potassium from bananas and soil and the whispers of nutrition labels, calcium from bones and milk, magnesium from the fine print on vitamin bottles and the deep, quiet relief of a relaxing bath. But inside you, they are more than items in a diet. They are the very language of nerve and heart. Take a slow breath in and let it go. Somewhere beneath your ribs, your heart is beating. A steady, repeating gesture, like a hand knocking gently on the door of the world. I am here. I am here. I am here. Each of those beats is not just a mechanical squeeze. It is an electrical event, triggered and timed by waves of ions sliding across the membranes of special cells. And above your heart, filling your skull like a secret ocean, your brain is also alive with waves, smaller, more intricate, but made of the same movements, the same salted currents. To understand them, we won't need equations or hard words. We only need to imagine a shoreline. Picture, if you like, a long, winding river at twilight. On one side, the land is quiet. On the other, a different kind of quiet. The surface of the water looks still, but just beneath, there are hidden currents, differences in depth and temperature and salinity. Now, let that river become the membrane of a single cell. On one side of the membrane, the inside of the cell, there is a certain balance of ions, more potassium, less sodium. On the outside, in the surrounding fluid, there is the opposite, more sodium, less potassium. This difference is not an accident. It is maintained, moment by moment, by tiny molecular pumps in the cell wall that trade sodium for potassium, sending sodium out and bringing potassium in. They work constantly, like caretakers tidying the edges of a garden, line by line. Because of this difference, this imbalance, there is potential, like water piled behind a dam, like a ball held at the top of a hill. The ions want to move down their gradients, sodium inward, potassium outward. They are held back by closed gates in the membrane, by the selective channels that say, "Not yet." This stored imbalance, this readiness to flow, is what we call an electrical potential. You don't have to remember the term. You can think of it instead as a kind of poised silence, a hush before a note is played. Every neuron in your body, every nerve cell from your toes to your thoughts, sits in this poised silence when it is at rest. Inside, the charge is a little more negative than outside because of how the ions are arranged. The cell is polarized, like a tiny battery, ready to send a signal when the time comes. Now imagine that somewhere along the dendrites, the branching arms of the neuron, a message arrives. It might be a pressure on your skin, the warmth of a mug in your hand, the sound of a familiar voice, or a thought rising from deeper structures in your brain. That signal shifts the balance of ions at a small patch of membrane. Some of the gates open briefly. Sodium slips inward, bringing its positive charge. If enough of these small disturbances happen close together, in time and space, they sum to something bigger. When they reach a certain threshold, a decision is made. The neuron fires. In that instant, special sodium channels along a segment of the membrane open in rapid succession. Sodium rushes in along the gradient that has been patiently maintained, flipping the charge inside from more negative to more positive. This rapid change triggers neighboring channels to open, and then their neighbors, and then their neighbors in a traveling wave. This is an action potential. Not a bolt of lightning exactly, but a ripple of electricity moving down the length of the neuron, the way a wave travels down a long coiled rope when you flick one end. Sodium flows in, then potassium flows out through its own channels to restore the original balance, like the sea returning to its usual level after a passing swell. From the outside, it's invisible. From the inside, in the private world of the neuron, it is a moment of profound action, a choice to pass a message along. Imagine this happening in a sensory neuron in your fingertip. You touch warm water. Receptors in the skin translate that warmth into electrical changes. Those changes build until an action potential ignites. That wave travels along the nerve, through your arm, up your spinal cord, into your brain. Somewhere in your somatosensory cortex, that message arrives as a pattern of tiny ripples, each one a brief surge of sodium and potassium across a membrane. Collectively, these patterns say warmth, safety, comfort. You experience them not as chemistry, but as the simple, tender pleasure of a warm bath. You might be lying in bed now, or on a couch, or somewhere quiet where the day is finally beginning to release you. As you feel the softness beneath you, as you hear the faint sounds of the night, similar waves are moving through your nervous system, some carrying the signals of the room around you, some carrying the echoes of thoughts, some simply maintaining rhythms that keep you alive. We often think of thoughts and feelings as vague, intangible things, but underneath, they are written in these precise physical events. Sodium in, potassium out. Membranes depolarizing and repolarizing, billions of times a second across the vast network of your brain. It's normal to forget that. It's normal to feel as if your emotions are storms without structure, rising out of nowhere and consuming everything in their path. And in a way, they are storms. Storms of firing neurons, storms of opening and closing channels. But even storms are made of individual drops of rain. And here, each drop is an ion, finding its way across a membrane, following a gradient like a path down a grassy hill. When an action potential reaches the end of a neuron, the presynaptic terminal, the story changes slightly. The electrical wave, born of sodium and potassium's dance, arrives at a small bulb filled with tiny packets of chemicals, neurotransmitters. The wave itself cannot jump the gap between neurons, the synapse. It needs a translator, a way to turn electricity into chemistry. This is where calcium enters the scene. Calcium, another shimmering metal, waits outside these nerve endings in the extracellular fluid, its concentration kept lower inside the cell than out. The membrane here is studded with special channels that open only when an action potential arrives. As the electrical wave hits, these gates open briefly, and calcium floods in. You can think of calcium as a key that both unlocks and announces. Its entry sends a signal to the cell's inner machinery. It's time. Tiny vesicles, those packets of neurotransmitters, move toward the membrane and fuse with it, spilling their contents into the synaptic cleft, the narrow space between cells. On the other side, receptors catch these molecules and translate their presence back into electrical changes in the next neuron. In this way, calcium is the bridge between spark and substance. It turns a traveling wave of charge into the release of molecules like glutamate, GABA, dopamine, serotonin, each carrying a different flavor of message. Excite, inhibit, remember, pay attention, feel joy, feel sorrow. Move this muscle, slow this heart. In your brain, this process is happening everywhere, all the time, in circuits that let you see and speak, in loops that handle balance and coordination, in deep structures that produce fear or pleasure, and in higher networks that generate self-awareness and meaning. In your heart, calcium has another role. Every beat begins in a tiny cluster of pacemaker cells in your right atrium, your heart's natural metronome. These cells spontaneously depolarize, their membranes slowly drifting toward the threshold for an action potential. When they reach it, sodium and calcium channels open, letting positive ions rush in. This creates a wave that spreads through the heart muscle, telling it to contract in a coordinated squeeze. Then potassium flows out, the cells reset, and the cycle begins again. Sodium, the initiating spark. Calcium, the strength of the contraction, the depth of the heartbeat. Potassium, the return to rest. Your heart is not just a pump, it is a musician, playing a rhythmic piece written entirely in ions. Most of the time, you don't have to think about the score. It plays on its own, adapting subtly as you move, as you feel, as you rest. Sometimes, though, the music can feel too loud. There are days when your inner currents run hot, when your thoughts race, when your chest feels tight, when sleep seems far away. Your sympathetic nervous system, the branch that prepares you to act, to flee or fight, stays active longer than it needs to. Your neurons fire more often. Your muscles hold small, constant tensions. It's normal to feel wired, overstimulated, as if your own inner electricity is too strong. And here, in this shimmering orchestra of metals, there is another player we have not yet talked about fully. Magnesium. Magnesium is a quieter metal, one that prefers the background to the spotlight. It doesn't often appear in dramatic transformations the way calcium does. Instead, it tends to sit in the doorway, moderating who comes and goes. In many of your neurons, there is a type of receptor that responds to glutamate, an excitatory neurotransmitter. When glutamate binds, this receptor, called an NMDA receptor, can let calcium flow into the cell, contributing to learning and plasticity. But at resting potentials, the channel is often blocked by a magnesium ion, lodged there like a small, polite bouncer. Only when the membrane is sufficiently depolarized, When enough other inputs say yes, does magnesium move aside and allow calcium to enter in large amounts? In this way, magnesium prevents neurons from firing too easily, too often. It enforces a threshold, requiring a real signal rather than letting noise trigger big changes. Throughout your body, magnesium does similarly gentle work. It helps relax muscles after they've contracted. It participates in hundreds of enzymatic reactions. It supports the maintenance of normal electrical gradients. You might think of it as an internal lullaby, not something that puts you to sleep instantly, but something that over time keeps the orchestra from playing too loudly, too fast. It quiets the background chatter so that only the melodies that matter can be heard. When people are under chronic stress, when their inner storm lasts not just hours, but weeks or months, these delicate balances of ions can shift. Pumps work harder, channels open more often, the gradients across membranes change. Sometimes magnesium is pulled into more and more reactions, leaving less available for its calming roles. You may feel this as restlessness, as difficulty relaxing, as a sense that your own body is humming at a frequency you can't quite lower on command. It is not a character flaw. It is, at least in part, your ions doing their best under difficult instructions. Somewhere deep in your brain right now, billions of tiny charges are ebbing and flowing. Some circuits are slowly dialing down as sleep approaches. Others, perhaps related to worry or habit, are still looping. Certain synapses are releasing their neurotransmitters again and again, like waves lapping ashore, not yet ready to stop. As you listen, you might imagine your nervous system as an orchestra nearing the end of a long performance. All evening, the music has been fast and complicated, bright violins of sodium, agile flutes of potassium, bold brass of calcium, the steady timpani of your heartbeat, the subtle chords of magnesium underneath, shaping the dynamics. Now, the score is changing. The conductor, a combination of circadian rhythms, hormones like melatonin, and your own choice to rest, has begun to lower their hands. The lights in the concert hall dim. One by one, sections of the orchestra soften. In your brain's cortex, the regions responsible for sharp attention and planning begin to let go. The sodium channels there open less frequently. The waves of action potentials become less organized, more spacious. In deeper structures, like the thalamus, which relays sensory information, patterns shift into slow oscillations, gently gating how much of the outside world reaches your conscious awareness. The music turns into a slow, repeating motif, like a lullaby played on low strings. In your brainstem and hypothalamus, networks that switch you between wake and sleep states adjust their balance, sending more inhibitory signals, more GABAergic whispers that say, "Quiet now. Rest." Throughout all of this, ions are flowing. Sodium and potassium dance their familiar dance, but in larger, slower waves synchronized across millions of neurons. If we placed electrodes on your scalp, we would see this as an increase in delta waves during deep sleep. Big, slow undulations in voltage that mark the brain's descent into its most restorative state. Calcium still moves, but its role shifts toward supporting processes like memory consolidation, helping stabilize changes in synapses that were tagged as important during the day. Magnesium continues to moderate, making sure that the doors don't fling open too easily, that stray sparks don't become bonfires. In your heart, the rhythm responds to this overall softening. Signals from the parasympathetic nervous system, carried along the vagus nerve, encourage your pacemaker cells to depolarize more slowly. Your heart rate drops. The intervals between beats lengthen slightly, like the space between slowing footsteps. The balance of sodium, calcium, and potassium currents in each heartbeat adjusts to this new tempo. Your heart's drumbeat keeps time with the orchestra's final, hushed movement. If you've ever lain awake, feeling your heart pound, feeling thoughts race, it may comfort you to know that all of that intensity is, at its base, just patterns of ions, just sodium channels opening and closing, just calcium rushing in and then being pumped back out, just potassium slipping through its special pores. This doesn't make the experience less real, but it can make it feel less like a moral failing and more like a state, one that can, in time, change. Tonight, by choosing to listen, by allowing yourself to pause, by breathing slowly, you are already sending quiet signals into this system. Each deep, steady exhale stimulates the vagus nerve, nudging your heart and brain toward calm. Each moment you spend not feeding anxious thoughts with more attention is a moment where certain circuits get a chance to tire and quiet. Your body knows how to find its way home to rest. The pumps in your neurons will continue to restore their sodium and potassium gradients as you sleep, spending energy to be ready for tomorrow's thoughts. Calcium will be tucked back into storage inside cells, or carried away and rebalanced. Magnesium will slide back into its places, into channels and enzymes, ready to keep tomorrow's sparks from burning too bright for too long. You, the conscious you, do not have to choreograph any of this. You can let your awareness become wider, softer, like a light that slowly fades but never fully goes out. You might imagine as your eyes grow heavier that you are floating inside your own inner sea. Around you, in every direction, ions drift and flow, drawn through channels like fish passing through hidden gates in a coral reef. Waves of charge move through the dark water, carrying messages to and fro. Far below, your heart beats in slow, reliable strokes. Above, your thoughts thin like morning mist. A few last sparks of sodium flash along an axon, like distant lightning on the horizon, then fade. Calcium stores itself away. The music of your nervous system settles into a long, low note. Salt. Sparks. Synapses. An entire universe of shimmering metals, all working together to let you move, feel, remember, and, finally, to let you rest. Somewhere deep in your mind as you drift, billions of tiny charges decide, without words, without you needing to ask, what to remember, what to release, what to simply let dissolve into the quiet electrical hum of sleep. And as they do, your heart's rhythm, your mind's storms, all of it are just ions, gently, patiently, finding their way home. The music of salts and sparks is still echoing gently in the background. Those waves of sodium and potassium, the quiet lullaby of magnesium, the bright entrances of calcium, they're still there, still moving within you, like the steady breath of an orchestra between phrases. Now, very slowly, we step toward the center of the periodic table, toward a quieter council, not the light elements that make up air and water and the soft architecture of life, not the shimmering alkali metals that carry your thoughts like ripples, but the ones in the middle, the transition metals, the ones that hold color in their hearts, the ones that wear many roles without fanfare. Imagine, if you like, that you are back in that dim museum of elements. The periodic table glows faintly on the wall. Your eyes move past hydrogen and helium, past carbon and oxygen, past sodium and calcium, to a band of elements in the center. Here, each box feels a little heavier, a little denser, like stones picked up from the edge of a river, solid, cool, unexpectedly beautiful when turned into light. iron, copper, zinc. They sit there like old counselors in the middle rows of the table, not flashy, not showy, but deeply woven into the stories of stars and soil and human lives. Tonight, they are our companions. Take a slow breath in and out. Somewhere in your chest, those counselors are already at work. Let's begin with iron. Iron is the metal of old tools and train tracks, of bells and bridges and stones streaked with rust. It is the color of deep red soil in certain parts of the world, the warmth in autumn leaves as they surrender their green. And inside you, iron is the color of blood, not the bright scarlet you might see from a cut, but the deeper, darker red carried in every artery and vein, in every tiny capillary that winds through the hidden geography of your tissues. Picture, if you like, a single breath. Air enters your nose or mouth, travels down the trachea, branches again and again into bronchi and bronchioles, until it arrives at hundreds of millions of delicate sacs, the alveoli, like clusters of tiny white balloons. Their thin walls press close to the lace-fine mesh of capillaries. Inside those capillaries drift red blood cells, soft discs, flexible like little pillows of hemoglobin. At the center of each hemoglobin molecule, nestled like a jewel in a setting, lies an iron atom. Surrounded by nitrogen and carbon, held in place by a ring structure, it waits. As oxygen molecules enter the alveoli, they diffuse across the thin barrier into the blood. There, they meet these hemoglobin molecules, and one by one, they latch onto the iron centers. The iron changes very slightly as it binds, its electrons shifting, altering its relationship to light, and in that tiny change, the color shifts too. Deoxygenated blood is a darker red. Oxygen-rich blood turns a brighter, more vivid hue. Each iron is a lantern. Each oxygen molecule hitching a ride becomes a point of light. Your heart pumps, and these lanterns move out from the lungs into the arteries, flowing like constellations through the dark tunnels of your body, down into your legs, out into your arms, up into your brain. When they reach your tissues, where oxygen levels are lower and carbon dioxide is higher, the iron lets go. The lanterns dim as oxygen slips away, diffusing into hungry cells that will use it to power their mitochondria, those tiny inner fires. In this way, iron doesn't just color your blood, it ferries the breath of life itself. Somewhere in your brain, right now, iron is delivering oxygen to neurons that are finishing the day's work, stabilizing memories, adjusting connections, deciding what can be stored and what can be released. Without enough iron, those neurons tire more easily, signals slow. The world can feel a bit hazier, heavier, as if someone has quietly turned down the contrast on your inner screen. If you've ever felt an exhaustion that sleep alone couldn't quite explain, a fatigue that seemed to seep into your bones, you may have brushed against the chemistry of iron. It's normal, in those times, to blame yourself, to think you're weak, unmotivated, lazy. But often, the explanation is quieter, simpler. Your lanterns may be fewer than they need to be. The tunnels of your tissues a little less lit. Your cells doing their best with what they have. Iron doesn't just live in your blood. It's stored and guarded in your liver, in ferritin molecules that hold it like coins in a soft, padded purse. Too much free iron can be dangerous. It reacts easily and can spark unwanted chemical fires. So your body tucks it away carefully, moving it in and out of storage with a careful hand. Hormones act as gatekeepers, deciding how much iron you absorb from food, how much you release into circulation, how much you keep back for later days. You are, even without noticing, an alchemist of iron, maintaining a delicate balance between deficiency and excess, between dimness and damaging brightness. As you breathe, as you rest, that balance continues. Now, turn your attention gently to another metal in that quiet council: copper. Copper is the color of old coins and weathered rooftops, of jewelry passed down through generations. Freshly polished, it shines a warm, pinkish gold. Left to the air and rain, it develops a green patina, like a slow, shifting memory of the sky and the sea. Humans have been drawn to copper for thousands of years. They hammered it into tools and ornaments, traced its lines into wires to carry electricity, watched it change color in fire. They sensed, perhaps without words, that copper is a natural conductor, a bridge between states, a carrier of flow. Inside you, copper continues this work, quietly, invisibly. In the mitochondria of your cells, the same tiny powerhouses that use iron-borne oxygen to fuel your life, copper sits in the hearts of enzymes that complete the final steps of cellular respiration. It helps electrons find their way to oxygen, ensuring that the energy extracted from food is turned into usable form, not lost as random heat or harmful byproducts. You can imagine, if you like, a line of people passing buckets of water along a chain, from a well to a parched field. Each person in the line is an enzyme. Copper is the strong, steady hands in some of those people, ensuring the bucket is neither dropped nor spilled, that the flow continues without interruption. Without enough copper, that chain falters. The final step in the electron's journey slows. Energy production dips. Just as with iron, the result can be a kind of tiredness that feels larger than your schedule or your thoughts. Copper also takes part in the creation of pigments, molecules that give color to skin and hair and eyes. In some species, it colors blood itself a blue-green, carried by hemocyanin instead of hemoglobin. In you, it influences melanin and the strength of connective tissue, helping weave collagen into resilient strands. Once, copper was worn as bangles and rings. Now, inside you, it is worn by enzymes as a critical part of their structure, like a bead on a necklace of amino acids. Not visible, not often considered, but essential. Then there is zinc. Zinc is more modest in appearance, silver-gray, unassuming. It doesn't flash with color the way copper can. It tarnishes, but not into the vivid greens of verdigris. It sits quietly in the background of industrial life, protecting other metals from rust in galvanization, forming the small, steady heart of batteries. In your body, zinc plays the role of a shy caretaker. It is everywhere, but rarely in the spotlight. Over 300 enzymes rely on zinc to do their work properly. It helps build and stabilize proteins, shapes the active sites where chemical reactions occur, and guides the folding of complex molecules. One of zinc's most poetic roles is in what biologists call zinc fingers, small protein structures that wrap around DNA, touching the genome with a gentle, precise grip. These zinc finger proteins help turn genes on and off, acting as regulators of transcription. You can think of them as librarians. Each zinc finger protein, with its metallic core, approaches a stretch of DNA and decides, this part of the script we will read now. This part we will leave for later. This part we will silence. In this way, zinc participates in the shaping of cell identity, determining which instructions are followed in which tissues, at which times. In your immune system, zinc helps white blood cells develop and function, supporting your body's ability to recognize and respond to threats. In your brain, it modulates certain neurotransmitter receptors, subtly influencing learning, memory, and mood. Like a caretaker moving quietly through a house at night, straightening objects, checking locks, making sure doors and windows are properly closed. Zinc moves through your biochemistry, refining, adjusting, securing. You rarely feel it directly. You feel it in its absence. Wounds that heal more slowly, infections that linger, tastes that dull, mood and attention that fray at the edges. It's normal, when you feel flat or foggy, to interpret that as a failure of character, as not trying hard enough, not being disciplined enough, not having the right mindset. But among these transition metals, in their work as hidden helpers, we see another possibility. Sometimes, tiredness is iron quietly asking for more lanterns. Sometimes, brain fog is copper whispering that the energy chain needs support. Sometimes, emotional flatness is zinc and its fellow cofactors doing their best under scarcity, prioritizing survival over sparkle. These elements never stop trying to maintain balance. Your intestines adjust how much of them to absorb based on signals from your blood. Your liver stores and releases them with care, like a cautious banker managing a precious savings account. Proteins patrol your circulation, binding extra ions that could cause harm, delivering them safely to where they're needed. You are, without noticing, constantly fine-tuning the colors of your own inner sunset. Iron giving blood its red. Copper giving enzymes their conducting warmth. Zinc giving structure its quiet stability. Somewhere deep in your brain, these metals are not only serving basic functions like oxygen transport and energy production, they're also shaping the subtleties of how you feel and think. In certain enzymes, iron helps build and break down neurotransmitters, compounds like dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. Copper participates in similar reactions, helping flip molecules from one form to another. Zinc, as part of receptors and transcription factors, adjusts how sensitive neurons are to these signals, how easily they strengthen their connections when two cells fire together. Synaptic plasticity, the ability of your brain to learn, adapt, heal, depends on this intricate choreography. For a connection between two neurons to become stronger, many processes must align. Calcium must enter at the right time. Certain genes must be turned on. New proteins must be built and shipped to the synapse. Iron, copper, zinc, all appear as silent partners in these processes. You might picture them as tiny weights on the strings of a mobile. Shift one, and the whole balance changes slightly. Not enough to break, perhaps, but enough that the mobile begins to tilt in a new direction. Attention feels different. Mood colors shift. Resilience feels nearer or farther away. It doesn't mean you are broken. It means you are alive, a living system sensitive to small changes in its building blocks. Sometimes other metals intrude on this council. Lead, mercury, cadmium. They are heavier presences, less welcome. They can slip into places reserved for beneficial metals, impersonating calcium or zinc, disrupting processes without performing the same helpful roles. In high amounts, they can poison the music of your metabolism. Your body again does its best to sequester them, to tuck them away in bone or other tissues where they will do less harm. It is always negotiating, always choosing, always acting as a careful alchemist in the laboratory of flesh. We don't linger on this as a warning, but as a reminder of your body's constant, quiet effort on your behalf. Every day, in ways you never see, it is defending the integrity of your inner council. Among all this complexity, it can feel overwhelming to think about what might be off, about how many different small imbalances could be shaping how you feel. But tonight, the invitation is not to analyze. It is simply to soften, to recognize that so much of what you experience as me is mediated by these tiny, loyal helpers, iron, copper, zinc, and their neighbors, working ceaselessly in the background. If you are tired, it may not be laziness. If you are unfocused, it may not be a lack of willpower. If you feel flat, as if color has drained from your inner landscape, it may not be a permanent truth about who you are. It may be lanterns needing refilling. It may be conductors needing a moment to reset the orchestra. It may be caretakers catching up on their rounds. Your body is always seeking balance. Always. Even now, as you lie here, it is adjusting absorption rates from your gut, recalibrating hormones that control how much iron you store or release, shuttling copper into and out of enzymes, placing zinc where it's most urgently required, like a sunset that constantly recomposes itself, adding a touch more orange here, a deeper purple there. Your chemistry is painting and repainting the sky of your inner world. You can help it, of course, with rest and nourishment, with seeking help when needed, with learning and gentle care. But you are not solely responsible for every fluctuation. There is a comfort in that. You are being carried by processes far older than you, processes forged in the hearts of stars, refined in the soils of ancient earth, and now, for a brief time, entrusted to the vessel of your body. As your eyes grow heavier, you might imagine lying on a smooth, sun-warmed stone. The stone has streaks of red and green and brown running through it, iron oxides, copper minerals, veins of other metals. Once, long ago, these elements were scattered in magma and seawater. Now, they are locked into a solid form that remembers heat and pressure and time. Inside you, the same elements are not locked. They are flowing. Iron lanterns in your blood, copper wires in your enzymes, zinc fingers touching your dina like a pianist testing the keys before a gentle nocturne. Their work does not end when you sleep. In fact, some of their most tender tasks, repairing dina, clearing damaged proteins, solidifying new synaptic connections, are most active at night, during deep and dream-filled stages of sleep, while your conscious mind wanders through images and fragments of memory, or sinks into dark, unremembered depths. Your hidden helpers are tidying the workshop. They file, mend, polish, and prepare. All you have to do is allow it. Let your breath become slow and soft, the way lantern light trembles just before midnight. Feel the weight of your body as something neutral, not a burden, but a sign that gravity still holds you, that Earth still supports you, that your iron-rich blood is still pulled lovingly toward the center of the planet. You are a small constellation of metals and water and carbon and light, a temporary arrangement of colors of blood and stone. You are not required to understand every detail of your own chemistry to belong here, to deserve rest. You are not required to fix every imbalance before you can sleep. You are allowed to trust that, while you drift, your body will keep acting as a careful alchemist, tending its quiet council of transition metals, and that somewhere deep within, iron, copper, zinc, and all their silent companions will continue their lifelong work, keeping the lanterns lit, keeping the currents smooth, adding, in 1,000 unseen ways, depth and nuance to the chemistry of you. The quiet council of iron, copper, and zinc begins to fade into the background now. The lanterns of blood grow dimmer in your awareness. The conductors of enzymes lower their invisible battens. The inner workshop of your body keeps humming, but our attention drifts elsewhere. Back out to the great map on the wall, back out to the periodic table itself. We've walked through the lightest elements, the bones of air and water, the shimmering salts of nerve and heart, the hidden helpers in the center. Now, in this final stretch of the journey, we turn toward the edges, the far right and lower corners of the table. The places where, for many of us, the symbols feel more mysterious. Names we don't say every day. Elements we don't buy at the store. Elements that live mostly in signs, in distant stars, in rock, in nuclear cores, in moments at the edge of existence. The light in this imagined museum softens further, as if the universe itself is starting to whisper, "It's time to rest." Take a slow breath in and let it fall away. We begin with the noble gases. On the rightmost column of the table, stacked one above the other like a family of lanterns, they wait. Helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon. Their names sound almost like characters from a myth or cities in a dream. In the language of chemistry, they are special because their outer electron shells are full. They are complete in a way that other elements are not. Hydrogen, with one electron, reaches outward. Sodium, with one extra, is eager to give. Chlorine, missing one, is hungry to take. But the noble gases, especially the lighter ones, are satisfied. Helium has 2 electrons in its tiny first shell. Neon has 8 in its second. Their needs, in this sense, are met. Because of this, they are largely uninterested in reacting. They don't grab at other atoms' electrons. They don't easily form compounds. They drift through the world like quiet observers, present, but rarely entangled. You've met helium already in these stories, lifting balloons, cooling magnets, dwelling in stars. Neon you've seen glowing in signs on city streets, bright red and orange tubes spelling words in the night. Argon whispers between glass panes in windows, insulating houses. It shields hot metal from air when welders work. Krypton and xenon flash briefly in camera flashes, in special lamps, in rare, vivid bursts. These gases have a strange dual nature. On one hand, they are aloof, rarely mixing with the dramas of chemistry. On the other, when electricity passes through them in a sealed tube, they shine with pure, unmistakable colors, their quiet presence suddenly, briefly visible. You might think of them as guardians of quiet. They fill spaces where, if more reactive gases were present, unwanted reactions could occur. They pad and protect, like soft cushions in a box. In light bulbs, argon keeps filaments from burning out too quickly. In double-glazed windows, it slows the transfer of heat, keeping warmth where it belongs. In a way, they are like emotional boundaries. The parts of you that know how to say, "No, this is enough." The parts that can be in a room without taking on every feeling in it. The parts that can watch a swirl of thoughts and simply remain still, neither clinging nor pushing away. It's normal, in a world as loud as ours, to feel like you have to be reactive all the time, answering messages, responding to others' needs, processing news, adjusting, adapting. You might feel guilty when you want to withdraw, to have a quiet evening, to let a text remain unanswered for a while. But inside the periodic table, a whole family of elements exists that are almost entirely devoted to stillness. Their lesson is simple and profound. It is okay not to react. You are allowed to be helium-like sometimes, light, quietly rising above the noise, not engaging in every argument, not entering every conflict. You are allowed to be argon-like, filling your own space, insulating your own heart, standing as a barrier between your softest parts and a harsh wind. Imagine, for a moment, that around you there is a thin, invisible atmosphere of noble gas. Not harmful, not heavy. Just a gentle, protective layer that says, "Only what serves me tonight may come close. Everything else can wait outside until morning." This boundary doesn't isolate you. It simply gives your nervous system a chance to rest. You might feel, as you breathe now, that your exhale creates this bubble, this argon shell around you. each breath out a soft yes to your own need for quiet. Each breath in a soft invitation to what truly nourishes: oxygen, slowness, presence. Just to the left of the noble gases, however, lives a very different family. The halogens: fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, astatine. Their names taste sharp, like the edge of metal on the tongue, like lightning in a distant storm. These elements are reactive, intense even. Where noble gases are complete, halogens are one electron short of a full outer shell. They are almost there, almost satisfied, but not quite. That missing piece makes them eager to find partners, especially metals that have a spare electron to give. When they do, they form salts, new compounds that are often far more stable than the elements alone. Sodium, with one extra electron it would like to lose, meets chlorine, who is longing for one more. They join, and sodium chloride is born, table salt. The crystals you sprinkle on food, the brine in your tears and sweat. Fluorine, the most reactive of all, is so intense that in pure form it can set substances aflame that you'd never expect. Yet in small amounts, as fluoride, it strengthens tooth enamel. Chlorine, in generous doses, can disinfect water. In your body, as chloride, it helps maintain fluid balance and electrical neutrality. Iodine, another halogen, is essential in the production of thyroid hormones, molecules that help regulate your metabolism, your energy levels, your body temperature. Too little iodine, and everything can slow. Too much, and systems can become overactive, jumpy, restless. Halogens, then, are powerful spirits. They are necessary in trace amounts, dangerous in excess, defining in their influence. You might recognize something of yourself in them. There are parts of you that react strongly, perhaps to criticism, to injustice, to sudden change, to perceived abandonment. Parts that flare up quickly, that feel too much, that sting, that burn. It's normal to have those reactions. It's normal to feel like fluorine sometimes, too bright, too intense, unsure where to put all that energy. In a relationship, in a conversation, in a crowded room, you might feel like chlorine in a small volume of water, strong, shaping the whole environment with your presence, even if you didn't mean to. The noble gases and the halogens sit side by side on the periodic table for a reason. They are neighbors in structure. The halogens with 7 electrons in their outer shells, the noble gases with 8 or 2, in helium's case. One step apart, one electron apart, one breath apart. In you, they can be neighbors too. The part of you that feels everything intensely, halogen, can live next to the part that knows how to protect and contain, noble gas. You can feel a strong emotion and also hold it gently, within a safe boundary. Tonight, if something is buzzing in your chest, an argument, an unfinished task, a shame, a fear, you don't have to extinguish it violently. You can imagine surrounding it with a soft glow of helium, neon, argon. Let the feeling be as intense as it is, but give it a safe container, a bubble of stillness around it. I see you, you might say to it silently. You are real. You are powerful. And for tonight, you can float in this argon-lit room without spreading through every corner of me. Somewhere inside your brain, this is exactly what happens during healthy processing of emotion. Circuits that feel intensely are balanced by circuits that regulate, contextualize, soothe. Fearful reactions from the amygdala are modulated by prefrontal regions that can say, yes, this is scary, but we are safe right now. The chemistry mirrors the table. Now we drift further down the chart, toward the bottom rows, where the heaviest elements wait. Here, names like gold, lead, uranium, and plutonium appear. Some are familiar. Some sound ominous. But tonight, we approach them not as threats, but as teachers of weight and time. gold first. Gold is a transition metal, like iron and copper, but it behaves differently. It is famously unreactive. It does not rust like iron, does not tarnish quickly like copper. Buried in the earth or placed in salt water, it can remain bright for centuries. It resists change, holding its soft, rich luster. Because of this, humans have long associated it with permanence, with value, with the things we want to keep. We've shaped it into rings and coins and crowns, stored it in vaults, woven it into icons and altars. In the language of the periodic table, gold is heavy. Its nucleus holds 79 protons, surrounded by a cloud of electrons arranged in complex layers. Those electrons move fast, influenced by relativistic effects, giving gold its characteristic yellow glow. Inside you there is very little gold, a trace perhaps from the food you eat, but it is not central to your chemistry. Instead, gold can be a metaphor, a reminder that in the midst of constant reaction and change, there are also parts of you that endure. Skills you have built carefully over years. Relationships that have passed through storms and remain. Inner values that, even when challenged, shine through. Like gold, they're not easily corroded by time. If you close your eyes, you might try to sense this inner gold. It may not appear as grand treasures. It may feel like small, steady qualities. Kindness you extend to others, even when you are tired. The ability to listen. The capacity to try again. The fact that, even after hard days and long nights, some fragile hope for better still flickers in you. These are your gold veins. They were forged, like the element itself, in ancient stellar collisions, in pressures beyond imagining, and then refined by your life. Near gold on this lower part of the table sits lead. Lead is heavier still, with 82 protons. It is dense, pleasantly soft to the touch in its solid form, able to absorb vibrations and radiation. It has been used in pipes, in paints, in bullets, in shielding around X-ray machines. It feels like embodiment of heaviness, of burden. As we have learned more about its toxicity, we have slowly removed it from gasoline, from household paints, from places where it could enter bodies and disturb delicate processes, particularly in children, whose developing brains are so sensitive. You may feel, at times, like you are made of lead. Heaviness in limbs, difficulty moving. A sense that your very thoughts have weight. This leaden feeling can come from many sources, from sadness, from illness, from lack of sleep, from chronic stress, from small imbalances in chemistry. It's important to know that heaviness is not proof that you are failing. It is a state, like the state of an element. Lead itself is not evil, it simply behaves in certain ways. In the right place, in the right container, it can protect and shield. In the wrong place, in drinking water, in dust, it harms. Your own heaviness needs containers too. Boundaries, support, gentle attention. People and practices that help you carry it, redistribute it, sometimes melt it into something more usable. And then, further along, we find the radioactive elements. Uranium, thorium, plutonium, and beyond them, short-lived atoms created in particle accelerators, existing for fractions of a second before they fall apart again. The word radioactive often carries fear. We think of accidents, of invisible dangers, of waste and war. But at its core, radioactivity is simply this: an unstable nucleus finding its way to stability. In heavy atoms, the nucleus contains many protons and neutrons packed together. Protons, all positively charged, repel each other, but the strong nuclear force holds them close. When the balance between these forces is just right, the atom is stable. When it is off, even slightly, the atom may, over time, rearrange itself by emitting a piece of itself, a particle, a burst of energy. This process is nuclear decay. An unstable isotope turns into a slightly lighter, more stable one, and in doing so releases energy into the world. Each radioactive isotope has a characteristic half-life, the time it takes for half of a given amount of that isotope to decay. For some, this is a tiny fraction of a second. For others, it's years, or thousands, or millions of years. Uranium-238, for instance, has a half-life of about 4.5 billion years, roughly the age of the Earth. These timescales are vast, almost impossible to feel. But the idea is simple. Nothing stays excited forever. Every unstable nucleus, no matter how long it takes, eventually transforms. It doesn't vanish. It becomes something new. Lead, in fact, is often the end point of long chains of radioactive decay. Uranium slowly, step by step, becoming stable lead, releasing pieces of itself along the way. You might feel, sometimes, that your thoughts are radioactive. That certain worries, once triggered, seem to keep emitting anxiety for an unreasonably long time. That certain memories, once touched, continue to glow painfully, as if their half-life were infinite. But somewhere deep in your mind, another kind of half-life is at work. When a memory is first formed, especially one charged with strong emotion, it is like an excited nucleus, full of energy, unstable, replaying itself often. Each time you recall it, you open that memory to change. Over time, unless it is constantly re-triggered, its emotional charge tends to diminish. Neural circuits associated with intense feelings can, with new experiences and gentle exposure, quiet down. Synapses that were once strengthened can weaken. New synapses can form, linking old events with new meanings, new contexts. In sleep, especially during certain phases of REM and deep sleep, your brain replays fragments of the day, of your life, weaving them into dreams and reorganizing storage. Part of this process is forgetting, not erasing entirely, but reducing the priority of certain details, allowing them to fade into the background. This forgetting is not a punishment, it's a mercy. Like radioactive decay, it makes room. If every detail, every hurt, every embarrassment stayed as vivid and sharp as the day it happened, your mind would be overcrowded, a museum that never retired an exhibit. Thoughts and feelings have half-lives. The sharpness of a fear after a startling noise, the sting of a criticism, the ache of a goodbye. They may feel in the moment as if they will burn forever. But given time and sleep and new experiences, they almost always soften. This doesn't invalidate the original emotion. It simply acknowledges that your nervous system cannot stay in a state of high excitation indefinitely. Sooner or later, the unstable state transforms. You can help this process, not by forcing yourself to move on, but by gently allowing moments of non-engagement. By noticing when a thought has repeated itself for the 10th time, the 100th time, and choosing, even briefly, to treat it like a decaying isotope. Ah, there you are again. You are losing energy, even if I can't feel it yet. I don't need to feed you tonight. Instead, you turn your attention as best you can to something immediate. The feeling of the pillow under your head, the steady rhythm of your breathing, the distant sounds of the night. This small act, redirecting attention, is like choosing not to bombard an unstable atom with more particles. It allows the natural half-life to do its work. Here, at the edge of the periodic table, the story turns inward and outward at once. Outward, we see a universe where even atoms are mortal, where stars are born and die, where elements heavier than iron are forged in cataclysms and then scattered, where radioactive isotopes slowly, gracefully, release their stored energy back into the cosmos. Inward, we see a mind where feelings rise and fall, where memories brighten and dim, where neural connections strengthen and weaken, where identities evolve. Letting go, of the day, of perfection, of constant vigilance, is its own kind of healthy decay. Not a collapse, but a transformation. A chance to fall gently apart so that you can be rebuilt by morning. You do not have to hold everything together all the time. You are allowed to unravel a little in the dark, to let your thoughts fragment and drift, trusting that what truly matters will be recollected by your sleeping brain, and what does not can be laid to rest. Tonight, the elements have taken us from first light to final release, from hydrogen's simple beginnings to uranium's slow surrender, from the fierceness of halogens to the stillness of noble gases, from the inner sparks of sodium to the heavy gold of meaning you carry in your chest. Now they invite you to rest. You can imagine, if you like, the entire periodic table closing its eyes. Each square on that glowing wall dims to a gentle ember. Helium sinks back into its stars. Neon signs flicker off in distant cities. Halogens curl into their salts. Iron folds itself back into hemoglobin's embrace. Radioactive isotopes continue their slow, inevitable journey toward stability, indifferent to human clocks. And there, in a small corner of the universe, on a turning planet, in a quiet room, a mind made of these same elements is finally laying itself down. The same forces that forged uranium in stellar deaths also forged the gold of your capacity for wonder. The same physics that governs half-lives governs the fading of today into yesterday. You are part of this vast, ongoing symmetry. Let your breath carry you now, like a gentle current, in and out. Atoms will keep being atoms. Stars will keep being stars. Your body will keep tending its chemistry. You can let go for a while. Somewhere beneath your thoughts, the elements keep watch. And you, luminous arrangement of stardust at the edge of time, can close your eyes and rest. And now, the tour of the table grows dim, like a museum at closing time. We have wandered, slowly, from the simple hydrogen that once filled a young universe, to the heavy, complex elements at the edge of existence. We have traced the way they gather in your bones, your blood, your breath, how sodium and potassium carry your thoughts, how carbon and oxygen write your memories, how iron ferries your next gentle inhale to every waiting cell. Somewhere deep in the mind, your neurons are already doing their nighttime work, sorting, weaving, erasing, and mending. You don't have to control any of it. The same silent intelligence that organizes the periodic table into patterns also organizes your inner world into something livable, one tiny step at a time. It's normal to feel like too much or not enough, to think of yourself as scattered, broken, or wrong. But when you look through the lens of elements, you begin to see something softer. You are not a mistake. You are a configuration, a particular arrangement of atoms that have traveled through stars, oceans, forests, and countless other bodies before arriving here, in this moment, as you, like the stars waiting quietly beyond the ceiling of the sky. The elements within you are steady, patient. Tonight, you are allowed to set down the heavy story of having to be better and instead rest in the simple truth of being composed. Hydrogen and oxygen, calcium and phosphorus, iron and copper, a trace of zinc, a whisper of iodine, a periodic poem written in the language of the cosmos. As your eyes grow heavier, imagine the periodic table fading into a soft, glowing grid, each element a distant lantern. One by one, the lights dim, not disappearing, just resting, just waiting. Your thoughts can do the same. No need to hold them up. No need to solve or finish. You are made of the same matter as comets and coastlines, lightning and lullabies. The universe has practiced being itself for billions of years. Tonight, you can let it carry you. Let the elements keep watch. Let your breath be the only thing you pay gentle attention to, until even that falls into sleep, and you drift, quietly, back into the vast, kind sea of stardust from which you came.